I'll leave pending at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman and
This
members.
afternoon. Show Senator Benton present. At this time, members, I would bring up Senate Bill 435 by Senator Middleton. I believe you have a substitute. Let me get the substitute adopted. Senator Hinojosa moves that the committee adopt committee substitute for Senate Bill 435 by Senator Middleton. Is there objection? Chair hears none. Senator Middleton, you can explain the substitute.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I want to start out today by apologizing for the delay in scheduling the hearing of this bill. And I want to thank the families here today and the families of victims here today for coming to your Capitol to speak from your heart. We all want justice for the killer in Santa Fe and all murders. And we want to allow this bill to give some small level of closure to families that have lost so much. And this is an important bill to get right, and that's part of the reason for that delay. We want to make sure that the mass murder of May 18th, 2018 is prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and the prosecution is not compromised in any way by this legislation. I have 4 kids, and I hope, like every parent here today, that I never know the loss of the 8 sons and daughters that Santa Fe moms and dads know, nor the loving families of Ann Perkins or Cynthia Tisdale. And I've been working with the Santa Fe families for years, and this bill is a culmination of those many meetings and visits in many of their homes of people here today. And currently, the Public Information Act accepts evidence of a crime from definition of public information, meaning that it does not have to be released to the public. A local government officer may voluntarily waive this exception, provided that they release the information to the general public. This provision in the law discourages prosecutors from releasing evidence or video of a crime that resulted in the death of a person to the victim's next of kin or victim. This bill allows, and this committee substitute allows, the Galveston County DA, who supports the bill, he's here today, to let families see the video and medical examiners report evidence from Santa Fe without subjecting it to public release. And the video evidence was explicitly put back in the committee substitute that's laid out right now. The bill also has provisions to protect against the public release or recording of the records that the DA allows the family and victims' families to view, and that they may be required to sign a confidentiality agreement. And this bill is a simple next of kin rights legislation that helps ease some of the pain of not knowing what happened and will help with some small level of closure after a tragedy like Santa Fe, where we had so many victims that lost their lives. Everyone processes grief differently, and I sincerely hope that this bill will help the families in grieving their traumatic loss from Santa Fe. And with that, I yield for questions.
Any questions? You have done a really fine job of handling a difficult, delicate piece of legislation. It was scheduled 2 weeks ago. You do not have to apologize for the rescheduling. It was a decision of the chair and the committee to do it right, and there we'll see as we go forward. It's still a delicate issue. We're very respectful of the family's wishes, and 2 weeks ago it was best to get it in the form that will pass through the legislature. So thank you for your hard work and sensitivity to the issue, and it's a shame that there are people in our communities that would politicize this issue and actually attack me for some unknown reason of chairing my committee in the proper way of making sure all the stakeholders and the families are respected, and you have an opportunity to get the bill in the form that you wanted. So we'll see today we have families in support of your legislation. I actually have cards from families in opposition, so it is still a very delicate matter to deal with a tragedy that we wish we weren't here discussing. So thank you. You've done a fine job, and so let's...
Thank you for your help, Chairman, in moving this bill forward.
Just let the process work. It is what the legislature is about. It's a bipartisan effort of communities from across Texas that have had input. So we're going to do it right, and that's why we're here this morning. So thank you. You've done a great job.
Thank you.
Jack Rohde. Galveston County Criminal District Attorney. So, Senator Flores present. State your name and who you represent, please.
My name is Jack Rhodey. I'm the Criminal District Attorney for Galveston County. I'm here to testify in favor of the bill. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for hearing me this morning. As Senator Middleton has rightly pointed out, and I know as everyone on this committee recognizes, the family members of people killed by violent crime suffer unspeakable tragedy that we'll never really understand. That's compounded when they don't have access to information about the crime that took their family members from them. And it's heartbreaking for them. It's frustrating for them. It's equally frustrating and heartbreaking for those who hold the information but aren't able to share that with them. And that is why we're here. The problem is that the public information laws of Texas don't currently grant a special right of access to immediate family members of violent crime victims. And that runs in direct conflict with the prosecutor's responsibility to not release information prior to trial that would compromise the trial. And so, to date, it has prevented us from being able to share that information. This bill would, in this situation, allow us to at least share some of the information with the family members that we've been unable to before. It's been years of waiting for them. I think this bill gets us a long way of where we need to be, and hopefully it will allow them to get some information and answer some questions they've had for a long time. So we support the bill, and thank you for your work on it.
Mr. Rhodey, is it your testimony that this legislation, if passed, will not compromise the investigation in any way?
If the way the bill's written, it restricts anyone who views the information from releasing that information publicly. And so if that holds true, then it would not compromise our prosecution.
You believe it will help with your closeness to the family and the victims' families? Will this help the healing process, in your opinion?
I think many of the families, Mr. Chairman, have suffered from uncertainty for a very long time, and that has presented barriers to them going through the grieving process.
Any questions?
I have a
Senator Huffman?
Yeah, thank you for being here, Jacqueline, for your work on this. And I'm completely supportive of the legislation. I'm just curious about something. So I'm thinking back on prosecuting. So it's your belief that, like, as you prepare for a trial, you can't show the families the autopsy photos? Because
Correct.
in the old days, you know, we would bring the family in, and if they were going to testify, especially if they were going to identify, you know, the body or something along those lines, that I would prepare the family by, but if maybe the law's changed or there's procedures.
If it's not related directly to their testimony, in this situation, it's seeing the full autopsy reports and also wanting to see video from this, in our case, a school,
Okay.
that kind of thing.
So it's a little more than just an ID in court or something?
Yes, ma'am.
So it's really a protection to make sure that legally the DAs are not compromising the cases?
That we're not compromising the case
Right.
or violating the ethical rules about releasing information into the public prior to trial.
Okay, and a family would be considered the public under the way the law is interpreted these days? I mean, it was different 30 years ago.
That's correct. If
It just was.
the information shared with the family, then it's considered a public release, and
Okay.
then anybody who has
Okay.
an interest gets to
So this
access.
kind of legislation then is necessary to facilitate the families having these opportunities?
That's correct, Senator.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
Chairman,
Senator Hinojosa.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. But I guess this situation applies when the defendant was deceased or killed in the process, and is not you will not have an actual trial in this case.
Well, in this case, we do have a trial.
Okay.
We have a live defendant. Because of his current incompetency to stand trial, we have not been able to have trial coming up on 5 years. The bill allows for prosecutors to retain discretion about what information to share, which I think is critically important. But in this case, we do actually have a criminal case pending.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Thank you, and thank you for the job you do.
Chairman, thank you,
Texas.
members. Thank you all.
Rhonda Hart. Ms. Hart, if you'll state your name and who you represent, please.
My name is Rhonda Hart, and I'm the mother of Kimberly Vaughn that was shot and killed at Santa Fe High School. 5 years ago exactly, I took my children to Florida. We posed in front of the castle at Disney for that photo that you have with you right now. We went to the wizarding world of Harry Potter and drank butterbeer. It was the last time we ever took a trip as a family of 3. Exactly 30 days after that photo was taken, a gunman entered Kimberly's classroom, killing her and 9 other people. Every spring, I get reminded of this trip via my Facebook memories. Now springtime means that Jack Rohde sends me an update on the mental health status of Kimberly's shooter. He is not currently fit to stand trial, and we've not had any information released about Kimberly and how she died. It's not fair and it's inhumane to keep prolonging this trauma for me and the other families. During this legislative session alone, we have traveled to Austin over 6 times to fight for SB 435 and HB 3729. I've met with almost all of your offices and on the Homeland Security Committee, retelling my story each time, re-traumatizing myself. I know how long it took for Kimberly to cry when she was born, but I don't have any information on how she died. I work diligently to get past the PTSD from the shooting. I attend therapy every month. I take daily medication. Hearing about the shooter's lack of mental stability sends me into a panic attack, and I regress. I have to call my therapist. I have to leave the location where I'm at. I have to take my medication early. I have to surround myself with grounding ideas and limit what kind of news I watch for the day. I have to sit down with my dog at my side and put my hand on him to regulate my breathing and bring my heart rate down. I have to fight to keep myself in the present because I have to parent my surviving child. He needs me too. My ask is that the committee supports SB 435. I know most of y'all are parents. Some of you are grandparents. Not knowing how Kimberly died keeps me awake at night. SB 435 is my only hope to gain information about the shooting and finally grant me some peace. Thank you.
Any questions? Thank you, Ms. Hart. Obviously, words can't describe adequately our sympathy and regret, but we're trying our best to give you some relief today, and thank you for traveling to Austin.
Thank you.
John Conan. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, my name is John Connard. I am here today in support of SB 435. I am Jared Black's uncle, Santa Fe High School shooting victim. I am here today to speak on behalf of Jared's mother, Pamela Stanich. This bill is extremely important not only to our family, but many other families affected by violent crime in the state of Texas. From the very moment of learning about Jared's death, we have had countless questions to which we have received few answers. What, when, why, and how are common questions asked about the death of a loved one. Taking into consideration of how painful these answers may be does not negate the need to know. An aching heart and grieving mind require these basic answers to process the tragedy of which it is undertaking. I would now ask that every member of this committee and legislative body place themselves in the position of which our family now finds themselves. Just days ago, you experienced the most horrific and tragic day of your life. You made phone calls to tell your mother that your son or daughter has been murdered. You are emotionally shattered and numb with sorrow. You stand across from the district attorney, who also has tears in his eyes. You ask the questions that have been eating at your soul. I am sorry, but I cannot tell you that. You hear his words, but can't make a reasonable comprehension of them. You say, I have a right to know what happened. And he replies, I am sorry, but you will have to wait until the trial. You realize that if or when your questions are answered, that you will be in a packed courtroom hearing the information being told to a jury and not privately to you. If you cry out or respond, that you could possibly be removed from the proceedings as it may violate the defendant's rights. Passage of this bill will allow the smallest consolation of comfort to grieving families. While this legislative body cannot undo the tragedy and reasons for our sorrow, you can help reduce the trauma that plagues our hearts and souls. Passage of this bill into law will allow the district attorney in a confidential setting to disclose relevant and gut-wrenching facts about the final moments of our loved ones' lives and how they were ended. I humbly ask this committee for swift and unanimous passage of this bill to the floor for a vote of the whole legislative body. You have an opportunity to help every Texan that has an unfortunate status of being a victim of violent crime learn the worst news of their lives in a private setting instead of a courtroom in which their natural emotional response could place in jeopardy the very justice that they seek.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Rosie Stone?
My son's name is Chris Stone.
I'm sorry, Ms. Stone. State your name first.
Oh, my name is Rosie Stone. I'm from the Santa Fe school mass shooting. Since I've lost my son, there's one thing that I've learned is that the moment that anybody dies in a school setting, they lose all their rights. As a parent, I lose all my rights, and that is not right. Nobody came into that school and asked my son, "Can I take your life?" Nobody asked for that permission. He was robbed of his rights, and that is not right. In 5 years, I have advocated over and over and over again that us parents should not be left in the dark. Just because somebody made the decision to come in and take my son's life should not give him the right to still have a thumb on my life. Because he sits in a hospital, I can't know nothing. I cannot know anything about my son. I can't know how he died. I can't know about all the failures. How can we fix something when we don't know what was broke? How can we fix something when nobody will give us confirmation about anything? It's heartbreaking. You have to live with the fact that you lost your child, and then you have to live with the fact that, I'm sorry, I can't tell you anything about it. That is no way to live. It's torture. And I don't know if you'll understand it, but it's pure torture. How does anybody expect us? Move on, Rosie. Do the best that you can with your life. How am I supposed to do that? Living with the unknown is just as worse as trying to make the decision. Should I bury my son or should I cremate him? I hope that I don't want nobody to ever walk in my shoes. But you know what the cold reality is? They will. The next killer is out there right now. He's planning his next murders. And there will be somebody else in my shoes. We can give them a little glimpse of hope that they can get the information that they need so they can live. Because it's hard living this way. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Ms. Stone, for working with the committee and your senator, and your coming to Austin will make a difference. We're doing our very best, and obviously we're sorry about your tragedy. So we're going to pass this piece of legislation for your son.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Allison Steele. Ms. Steele, state your name and who you represent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Allison Steele. I'm representing myself, and I'm the mother of 19-year-old murder victim Kaylee Mandotti. 1 week ago today, I came to this Capitol and gave my full-throated supportive testimony to the identical House bill, to the bill identical to 435 in the House. But I have, as you know, there have been at least two rounds of recent changes to this bill, one of which only dropped last night. And I want to start by saying that there's not a single person in this equation who wants to take anything away from Santa Fe. They have stepped up and met their legislative obligations. They've been incredibly brave, and I have infinite respect for them. But there's another side to this issue that needs to be stated. There's a much larger issue here, and someone needs to state it, so a few of us will. Murder survivors are murder survivors. We're a single class of affected party. I'm a crime victims advocate and a murder survivors advocate in particular, and it does not matter to me whether a survivor is from Santa Fe, Texas, or El Paso, Texas, and I would argue that it shouldn't matter to anyone else either. We are all constitutionally guaranteed a right to equal protection under our laws, and let me tell you what, this right here is one of the most protective laws for crime victims that I've ever seen. Nothing Texas can strip away those very fundamental rights that are given to us under the 14th Amendment. And I'm not a constitutional expert, so what I had asked this committee and every stakeholder in this equation to do, who drafted this sub late last night, was please explain to us how it does pass constitutional inspection. On its face, you've written a bill that has very good intentions. It benefits a handful of families, however, while leaving thousands of other people in equivalent circumstances out in the cold. And to me, that doesn't pass moral inspection at the very least. So thank you for hearing me.
Thank you for traveling to Austin, your testimony.
Do we have a copy of this, sub?
To be honest with you, I don't know. Oh, wait a minute, I wouldn't go publicly.
Okay.
Just a second, let me check. Ms. Steele? Senator Huffman has a question.
Just briefly, because you just mentioned about something new that you thought was unconstitutional, can you point to what part of the bill, just so I can glance at it? Just
The part of the bill that I specifically object to is H3, which is the definition of a qualifying crime. That's the one that's been scoped to exclude anyone who doesn't fit that definition, which is pretty much everyone, to my knowledge, except for that one group.
Okay, thank
So-
you, thank you, that was my question.
Why don't I get some copies? Get some copies. Jessica Gehring? If you'll state your name and who you represent, please.
My name is Jessica Gehring, and I'm representing myself.
Very kind. Proceed.
As just like Allison, I was here in favor of the same bill in the House, but as the bill as written, it excludes a lot of us. My fiance, Austin Utley, was brutally stabbed in 2019. He was one of 9,000 Texans murdered since Santa Fe. Some murders get attention and others are forgotten. I am asking the committee to make sure that you remember every single murder victim. Santa Fe deserves answers. Every murder victim's family deserves answers. Austin's murderer has never spoken. The only answers that we got were in his autopsy. It took 128 days for us to get the autopsy, and we were tortured every night, wondering if he suffered. The family of Brandon Truman, who was murdered on October 2020, they want to know if he was still alive after he was shot and set on fire. The family of Arlene Alvarez has been waiting over a year to have access to evidence. The family of Catherine Mowry waited 37 years to have access to their loved one's autopsy. Homicide survivors already have a high risk of post-traumatic stress disorder, major depressive disorder, addiction, and suicide. We become social pariahs. Our lives are over as we knew them. Denying families access to the only answers they may ever get is cruel punishment of the innocent who are already traumatized.
Any questions? Thank you for your witness testimony. Letitia Ybarra. Ms. Ybarra, if you'll state your name and who you represent.
Good morning. Letitia Ibarra. I represent myself. I am the mother of a 24-year-old. My daughter was murdered in 20.
Speak in the mic a little.
Oh, yes. Letitia Ibarra, and I represent myself.
Yes, ma'am.
My daughter Jessica was murdered in August of 2020 in your area. I'm one of your constituents, Senator Huffman. Last week, it was my plan to attend these meetings in support of this. As a mother of a murdered child, I would like answers too. Regrettably, I now oppose it. And the only part that I oppose is the exclusion of me and my family from this. What you have to understand is I have not yet had the stomach to look at or know really the details of her murder, but that will happen when we go to court. The absolute worst day of my life was not the day that I found out that she died, but the day that I found out she was brutally murdered. That was, the sound that came out of my body was gut-wrenching and almost animalistic, and I scared the hell out of all my family. I can't imagine being in that vulnerable state in court in front of the person who intentionally did this to her. So what I ask is the respect and dignity to see that in private, process it, so that I am ready for court, so that I'm not asked to leave court. I can sit and witness justice for the murder of my daughter, and again, not do it in front of the man who did this to her.
Senator Huffman.
Thank you very much for being here. How long ago was your daughter murdered?
2.5 years was
I missed that in the beginning.
August in 2020.
Right. And so is it still set for trial, or?
It's not gone to trial yet. We're pending, I think this week or next week, we're going to reveal the results of sanity evaluations.
Okay.
And then we'll go from there, but we're potentially going to trial. We're just
Which
waiting
county
on that.
do you live in? I
Harris
know-
County, yeah.
Harris
I'm
County.
your constituent.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're in Harris County. So that's where we're waiting on, and that will be actually soon. I understand the results have come back.
Yeah.
And we have a court date next week to see where we go from
It
there.
is a long and torturous process.
Absolutely, it is. You know, I don't, there's, Bond said, I don't know day to day whether he's going to get out and come after me. I don't know exactly what happened to her. I know that she was brutally beaten first and then stabbed in the neck multiple times.
Well, God bless you.
That's all I know. But again, I'll have to see photos of that in person,
Yes.
in front of him.
Yes.
Thank you, and thanks for having the courage to come down. No piece of legislation is perfect.
Right.
It's a process. We will take your concerns forward, and might be another piece of legislation, or we'll see how we can address your concerns and others' concerns as as this piece of legislation goes forward. I know it was a delicate drafting to try to not interfere with the prosecution, which we all
Right, which none of us want.
Yes.
You know, I don't want to do anything to
interfere with.
interfere with that whatsoever.
Well,
Again,
that's-
I would like to be mentally prepared to be
Sure.
a good, not witness, but
Yes,
to
ma'am.
be ready for court as her mom.
Well, and we want to help you all we can. I just know, and it was part of the decision to not have the hearing 2 weeks ago, to continue to try to perfect this very sensitive piece of legislation. And as we go forward, your input and other victims' families will certainly be consulted, and we'll try to do the very best we can without compromising any prosecution.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you, and
Thank you so much.
be safe. Anyone else present would like to testify for or against committee substitutes for Senate Bill 435? If not, public testimony is closed.